All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop that because that was annoying. I apologize. Welcome to AAC in the Cloud 2022. And this session is called Cough Drop Collab, Cough Drop AAC Management Solutions for Districts and Organizations. And I'm going to do a disclaimer here. I do work for Cough Drop, and this session is going to be discussing some of the technologies and solutions that we've set up for districts and teams to manage a lot of your licenses and your students and teachers and things. But I strongly want to stress that this does not take place in an evaluation, and that we do not believe that the Cough Drop app itself is the correct solution for every user. So we still strongly suggest that you do a full evaluation with every student for AAC. So, all right, so let's do a quick introduction. My name is Scot Wahlquist, and as I mentioned, I work for Cough Drop, and Brian Whitmer started Cough Drop back in 2014. That's his daughter, Becca. He's a parent of an AAC user, as am I. That's Adam. We just had some usability issues with what was currently out there. And my biggest issue was my background. I come from the cloud industry. And at the time I worked for Google, and the AAC solution that we were given, it worked okay for him, but the biggest issue I had was when he gets really happy, he throws his device around and it would break or die, and then he'd come up to me with other devices or other devices that were not the same type of platform. And he couldn't use it. He'd get really frustrated. I get really frustrated. So we decided to switch him to one that was in the cloud and found out there was not. But luckily, Brian was putting one together, and we started using it and liked it so much I joined the team. So teaming him at the time, we're not very big, but that's where we are. Okay. So what are we talking about today? What we're talking about is some features we're calling Cough Drop Collab. And what we're trying to do is make it easier for the AT specialist and the head speech path, or a lot of times the head speech path, or the person that the speech pathologist that's taking up AAC the most is the AT specialist, or even the administration. We're trying to make it easier for them to be able to organize their AAC and be able to keep track of the AAC for all of their students, from the IEP all the way to providing it for them from whatever grade they are, all the way through until they graduate. That includes assigning them their teachers, their speech paths, and making sure they have a full transition through the entire year, or through their entire time in that district. And we can do that with some of these things. And so I'm going to try to track the Slack channel. As you have questions, feel free to ask. Let's go ahead. So AAC barriers. So we spent a lot of time dispelling myths, sharing knowledge, just trying to make the AAC community stronger and removing barriers. In fact, this whole conference is about trying to make AAC stronger for everyone. But some of the times the barriers can actually just be the district itself. A lot of what's going on in the world, or what's happening with special education. So what are some of these barriers that are not necessarily in the past, but things that we can take care of, utilize technology to manage and make things a little bit smoother for all of, not only the AAC user, but those managing it. So what we did is, over the last year, I did an informal survey where I just talked to my top 10 clients, which are school districts ranging in about 40,000 or 40,000 students to about 900,000 students. And I just asked them, what keeps you awake at night? Not necessarily about AAC itself, but just what keeps you awake at night. And 3 of them that I was talking to were AT specialists, and then 4 of them were speech pathologists or speech pathologist supervisors, and then 1 of them was a special education director. And these were the things that were keeping them awake at night. And then I'll get into why that affects AAC. But one of them was buy-in from staff. And that's one that I've heard the whole time that I've been in AAC. It's hard to get buy-in from the staff. I don't want to have to take away all this time to model. But one of the newer ones since COVID is teacher and staff shortage, especially in the special ed, in the whole industry. And I heard this from all 10 of them. If this is not unique to, or if this is unique to just these school districts, I would be surprised. I would imagine it's the same with yours. This was a new one to me. And if I've listed this, I heard it in more than one. I heard it in at least 3. Increase of IEPs from the general ed population. I think that's because of COVID. Just because some of the kids were falling behind because they were kept home. But why will that affect AAC? Well, it's kind of taking away the time of the AT specialists, as they're having to spend their time doing more and more. And so sometimes the AAC can, in the past, they'd be like, I bet that kid could use AAC, whereas they may just not even have time to think about it. Lack of funding and resources, litigious parents or families, which is interesting. This one also ties back to the increase of IEPs. We're getting more IEPs and families that are suing if you don't get it taken care of. And I'll talk about a school district that we made sure help the school district take care of not being sued with their increase of IEPs. More demand for data and reporting. IT department, I heard that from several of them. I have a hard time with the IT department. They're trying to make the assistive technology. They don't understand it. They want it to. They want to treat it like just regular curriculum, and just I don't have the time. Nobody has the time. Why do these affect the AAC as a whole? You're not able to keep track of the students that need it. And you're not going to be able to, if you're not being able to keep up with the students that are nonverbal or non-speaking or delayed speaking, there are other AAC users that you're completely looking over. So let's get into this really quick. Okay. So quick introduction to cough drop for those that don't know cough drop. What we've tried to do is we're revolutionizing AAC, the AAC industry, in that we've taken traditional high-tech AAC, which is high-tech software that's like an iPad based, where typically with the device-based AAC, you have it on a device, and you can save your boards somewhere. You can save it to a, a file. You can save it to a drive. You can save it to Dropbox, things like that. And if somebody else has that program on there, then they may be able to access it too. But this is an issue because if they don't have the same type of device, or they don't have, they can't do anything with that file. So what we've done is we've tried to revolutionize it by moving the AAC itself up into the cloud and then making it so that you can access it across whatever device you're on. It makes it a lot easier. Think of it like your Google Docs, your Office 365, right? Where I can make a Google document and I can pull it up on my phone or my iPad or whatever. And if I make a change on one of them, it's going to sync automatically to the cloud. And what that also does is that allows somebody else, if I need to share it with somebody, I can do that as well. And they don't have to have the same type of device. And this is important because if I want mom and dad to be able to look at it, they can do so. I've got a district recently that tell us that for it to be used with students, the device had to log off. Oh yeah, that's we did. We had a district tell us, their AT department told us, or their IT department said, all of our apps must log off after 60 minutes of non-use. So trying to work with the technology department, we quite understand that. All right, so that's what we've done is we've tried to revolutionize it by moving it into the cloud and making it available for anybody to use. What that also does is, because it's in this cloud, then we can support the AAC user. So the AAC user can have it on their device, but so can dad. Dad can have it on his phone. Mom can pull up any of the data and reports on her iPad. The teacher, the speech path, who apparently is a scientist, lab coat, she can pull it up on her iPad and make whatever changes she wants to. Anybody that accesses it, if they make changes to it, it's going to sync automatically to this cloud and then sync back to the device of the user the next time they're near Wi-Fi. And it can even sync up. We can sync it to the classroom, to their interactive whiteboard and things. What we've tried to do is make AAC immersive, right? So if you think about, in my school district, they have what's called a Chinese immersion program, where they're not only teaching them Chinese like once a week or even once a day, they are immersing them in Chinese, where there's a teacher from China and she's teaching them, she's speaking to them in Chinese all day long. That's helping them learn Chinese, but she's not only doing that, but they're learning math in Chinese, and they're learning history in Chinese, and they're being immersed in Chinese. This is what we're trying to do as we change the AAC industry, is we're trying to immerse this AAC user in AAC by allowing others around them to be able to access their boards and be able to access and also have data and reports and be able to see things remotely, which is important for this speech path who can only be with them occasionally. Okay, so this is what we've done at home. We can all, we're not just one of us with their device and all of us gathered around it. You can see my son has his device. We all have our own devices, and he's got an iPad, and I've got my Android phone. My wife has her Kindle. My daughter has her Chromebook, and we're trying to break these barriers of who can work with my son. This barrier is gone, right? We don't want that to be a barrier of the device because we can all access the cloud and access it and model with them, which is important. You can see here, he couldn't care less. But that's not what we worry about at first, right? We just want him to see it happen. So that's what we do. And then we can, this was COVID. They can even work with them on the computer if they need to. And it doesn't matter where they're at, they can keep track of them. But that's the goal, is they can put on their devices and model with them. And when they're on field trips, they can model with it on their phones. Okay. So that's what we've been doing in the past. But as I've been talking to these school districts and the issues they've been having, sorry, my device went funky. Okay, so this is Adam's AAC, and this is what helps this whole team that we've built around him access his device. What we're now doing is taking this same technology and the same cloud technology and making it easier for districts to be able to manage all of their devices, right? So we're calling it the Cough Drop Collab suite of tools that you can use. And it's going to give you the ability to provide services to students who could need it in multiple locations. You could you're going to be able to strengthen this AAC team wherever they're at. You're going to authenticate based on the user, not a specific device. And you're going to be able to collaborate everywhere. And we're going to give you this management system so that you don't have to go out to each of these devices and make some changes. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a few school districts that we did some things with to help make their lives a little bit easier. This first one was a school district that we've been working with in Michigan. They've got a 3-person AT team, but they've got 21 schools and 43,000 students. And their biggest problem is they've got a very large geographic area. So if they need to go out and be able to do evaluations, and they need to be able to go out and make sure that it's being used, and they need to be able to have the actual device to make any changes. It's really hard. And the same with the speech path. She's over 3 different schools, but they're hours apart, right? The other problem is there's a very transitory population, so they're having a hard time. They're like, I bet this kid could use AAC, but what if they move? And it's really annoying. And they're short on teachers and speech paths, which once again, I believe every school district is. And the other thing is they wanted to start keeping track of their IEP goals. So what we did was we gave them, they purchased some licenses, and we gave them a year free of our organization license management tool. What that allowed them to do, an organization license management is a simplified software management for the AT team. It's going to allow them to distribute the licenses wherever they need to, assign it to the correct kiddos. And I'm going to show you instead of just reading it to you, because that's boring. Okay, so instead of this speech path right here going, okay, I've got these 3 iPads over here, and I got to make sure each time I go there that I fix this, and I've got this one over here, and oh man, and then 2 weeks, maybe I'll help this kiddo. And I don't know what's going on here, and IEP time's coming up, and why do we do that? Why don't we take that same technology, that same cloud technology, and instead of having the speech pathologist or the AT specialist moving to all the school districts. Let's have the AT specialist pull up the whole school district right here in the cloud and assign the licenses as needed, and be able to pull up all of their licenses and say, okay, I've got the specific kiddo. I can assign them a license. I can actually create an account for them. I can assign them a license. Not only that, but I can assign a school teacher, and I can assign which speech pathologist is their manager. And the school teacher and the speech pathologist can now see this student's boards and model with them. You know, back to the whole immersion. They can keep track. And this is all done from his desk. And this is going to be able to make it so that you don't have this whole backlog of we have to wait to see what's going on. Right? And we've got this many licenses, and this many goes to this school, and I can actually set up a specific school. I can set up a caseload. I can set them up however I want to. And the really cool thing about this is if a kiddo moves, they keep their account. They keep their username and password and everything you've set up. But you take back the license and you can reassign it to somebody else. Because that's important, because everything that you've had on there and everything, if they've been working for 2 years with Cough Drop, you don't want to take that away. You don't want to have them start. So the next school district that they're at, they can assign one of their licenses, right? So it's going to save you time as the manager of the district, and it's going to save you money and a headache. Okay, so what the org license management tool does is basically just you can quickly add users, easily switch dashboards, be able to see usage if it's actually being used. You can set goals for them remotely and just see what's going on. So let's take a look. I'm actually just jumping into Cough Drop itself. So this is actually a live version of Cough Drop. I'm in an organization right here, and I can keep track of, we can assign specific managers who are over all of your staff and over all of your kiddos. And I can go in and I can set up and I can give them an account. And I've got so many licenses that I can purchase. And here are all my staff. And here are all my kiddos. We've purchased a block of 11 licenses. I've got several kiddos that are on trials. We have a 2-month trial. So I've gone ahead and set up several of them. And then if the trial works for one of them, I can just go ahead and assign the license, one of these licenses. I've got 2 left, so I can assign it to one of these kiddos. But then, as I mentioned, if the kiddo moves, I can X them out, and they keep that username and password and keep on going wherever they're at. But what else can we do with this is we're going to keep track. We mentioned that we want to immerse them and make sure that the correct staff members are working with the correct kids. We're going to set up what's called a rooms feature, where I'm going to set up my teacher and the speech path, and whichever staff members can work with which kiddos. And we can even drill down and give them the correct authority. Like, I want this staff member to work with the kiddo, but I don't want them to see their data and reports. And I don't want them to make changes. So we can give them the privacy they need. So think of it like a lot of school districts are now using Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft Teams districts have the ability to be able to assign which teacher and which staff members can see which students work, be able to assign it out to them, be able to work with them and see what's going on and see how they're progressing. But because of the privacy issue, they're assigning just specific. So this teacher is just over these kiddos. This is what Cough Drop is doing with AAC, is you're making sure that you're giving the privacy controls of just the specific kiddo, or just the specific teacher, and just the specific speech path to the correct kids, right? But at then, if the end of the year or the next year, or if you have staff shortages, or some of your helpers are moving quite a bit, you're going to be able to keep track of that. And then the next year, if this kid's in first grade, all you're going to do, the student is in first grade, and this is his teacher, and this is his speech path. But next year, you don't want them to be their supervisor. You don't want them to be able to see his account, his board. So you would just X him out of this account, this room, and move him into this one. And then this teacher and this speech pathologist are now over there, right? So we're assigning them correctly. And if you haven't seen caseloads before, let me actually show you in Cough Drop. So this is what it looks like. If I'm a speech pathologist, I've got all of my students that I'm working with, and I can access their boards. I can model with them from my own device. I can make changes to their boards. This kiddo was set up more like a PEC style, but I can model their boards with them. I can, if the other reason why this is important is, like, if I exit speak mode, I can edit their boards remotely. But I have this part's normal, but this is what the management tool is doing, is it's allowing you, the management team, to keep track of all of these students and all these teachers. As the staff changes, we want to make sure that the student is getting this same treatment and making sure that it's progressing through the whole time they're with your school district. But the other thing that we can do is, with the IEPs, is we can set up data and reports. And some of the things we've been playing with, depending on how much your school district wants to do, we can even run some. Get rid of it. Yeah. There it is. We've even been playing with, this is what the school district does, or this is what they do with their assessments. And you can go through, and they cry when they're uncomfortable. They smile and go through and do the full assessment and keep track of it here, which is going to be able to keep track of it. And you're going to be able to, if the school district has specific requirements that you do for each kiddo, you can keep track of it. And it'll keep track of it for the district and under the kiddo. And these are all things, as I mentioned, that we're playing with. But it makes it really nice is, as you go through, you're gonna be able to see combines 2 or 3 words, ask a question, uses progressive verbs. You go through this whole list, and it's going to keep track of it for them. And then you can also go through an actual evaluation for them. I've got this kid I'm working with. I won't keep saying kid. I can actually run them through in a whole evaluation. I'm not going to do this because there's a great presentation tomorrow that Brian's going over, but where's the cat?
Find the cat.
To see how big of an area they want to reach. So,
find the cat.
But once we set up the size of board, once we run the evaluation, run through what the school's assessment is, run the evaluation, then we pick the board that we want. Then we set goals with them with the IEP, which in the past, I know is right before the IEP, you've got all these thick notebooks.
Can you find the cat?
Where you say, oh, you know what, IEP is coming up. We need to hurry and fill these out. And you're what do we do during the year? we did this, and did we work with them? And you're just trying, you're relying on the aides and all the teachers and everybody else to have kept track of it over the year. Wouldn't you rather have just had goals through here and set the goals ahead of time and let it automatically keep track of it for you? You can do that. You can do it specifically for, increase the communication attempts, or I want to do a specific targeted goal, work of goals. Okay. Anyway, I got to move on. But these are some of the things that you're going to be able to do with this management tool. This is going to save you a lot of time and money by being able to keep track of who has what licenses, being able to assign which teachers and which staff are over which kiddos, and be able to make sure that they have a consistent tracking of their goals that you've set for them through their entire time at that school district. This is very important, and it's a very useful tool. So we've got several school districts who've been trying it out for us, and we're continuing to add tools to it, and we'll be releasing through this summer, we're going to be releasing a lot of the pricing and things on a lot of these, but stay tuned on here. It's pretty exciting. Okay. All right. Any questions? Not yet. Okay. Let's talk about the next school district. This one's really cool. Okay, this school district is a very small school district. I was working with the head speech path. They've got 10,000 students, and they do not have very many funds. In fact, they have to go to another school district. Anytime they have a student that actually needs AAC, they've got an agreement with another school district who will fund the AAC with them. It's pretty sad. And it's a very transitory student body, and a lot of English as a second language. But they were given a one-to-one Chromebook grant. The speech path said, I want to start kind of a UDL AAC core vocabulary, because I know it's going to be able to help with articulation, vocabulary, sentence structure, things like that. And I know there are a lot of people that are being overlooked, but we just can't afford it. What can you do for us? And, we've got a few AAC users. The other problem is my teachers don't have time. They're overwhelmed. You're going to notice a certain pattern on each of these caseloads is nobody has time. But the teacher says they'll be on board, but I've got to run it. What can you do for me? So what we did is what's called classroom licensing. A classroom license is basically, we just did a teacher account and then a shared classroom account that we did up to 25 devices, including the whiteboard. So each of the students were able to pull up that account on their device, and they all had a shared AAC core board, right? And then the speech path and other staff members could be supervisors. And the speech path, they were the ones that kind of ran it, but it was, I lost my other device. I've got too many devices. But what they did was, each week they would come out with a AAC core words of the week, and then they would come up with lessons. What they would use is some of our core. Got too many things in the way here. Forgive me as I move things around. They would put together lesson plans using the communication workshop, which is just like, we all know we're supposed to model, But we run out of time. So they would go into our communication workshop, which is called coreworkshop.org, put together some plans of here's our words of the month, go and stop and up and down. And here's some things you can do with them. Go means with more than one thing. When something's crazy, go crazy. Go get it. And here's some ways you can model. Go there, go back, go crazy, go home, not go. And when they get good at it, right, go get it. And they'd print these out and even learning projects so that the teachers would have ways that they could model from their smartboard. Here's some learning objectives. This week, we're talking about go. What are some things that go? And they'd go up to their smartboard and they'd point at it. And everybody would point at it on their devices. And what the other issue was they had was some of the school or some of the classes had a smaller core board than others. Some of it was because of vision issues, and others were just because they didn't quite think they could handle the Core 60. So what they did was we put in what's called focus words. If you haven't seen focus words, it's pretty cool. So the speech pathologist can make a list of focus words. These are the words we're working on. Yes, no, more, done, stop, not, want, go, or whatever they want it to do. And if they set the focus word, it's going to highlight it for those users. So on all of their devices, those words are going to be highlighted. And if this class has the Core 112, it's going to be highlighted. If the other class has the Core 60, it will highlight where they are. You can also print out the pathway to where each of the words are on whatever boards that you are. But the teacher can also go in and find out their own, what books are we reading? We can browse books about go, or we can see what books we're reading this week, and things like that, and do it that way. Right? Little Women, we're reading Little Women, and it will do this. So that was one of the issues that they were having, is the teachers were on board, but they didn't have time. And so being able to take advantage of the communication workshop and set some of these focus words made it so that each of the classrooms could easily go through and stay together. And the speech pathologist only had to make these core words of the month once a month, right? And be able to provide it for multiple students. And what they were finding out was, at first they're like, that student probably doesn't need it. And they're finding out, oh, I bet they do need AAC. And, oh, that student is actually progressing, or their vocabulary is getting better, or their sentence structure is getting better. They're using ing, right? Because we all know, this is why we're here, that there's AAC is used for many things. But this was a way that the classroom core, once they determined that a student was able to or actually could use AAC, then they did a full evaluation for them and got them their own device, because this shared classroom account, you can't change it for a specific kiddo. It's one account. So, but we did that. We did that for $200 per classroom. Right? So it was nice. It was much cheaper than having to go purchase an account for 25 licenses each. Once again, I don't have any, we haven't released anything as far as official pricing, but maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but watch for that over the summer. Okay. The third one, any questions on that? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to make sure anybody's even watching it. Hey, okay, I guess I don't have to worry. All right. Let's continue. Okay. So communication workshop, they took care of it, and then focus words. Okay, the third one, this one was interesting because this was a school district out of New York, and they had 900,000 students. But what happened was after the COVID, they were extremely far behind on IEPs, and they were not getting to them on time, and they knew they were going to get sued because they couldn't. They actually had done a lot of the IEPs, but they couldn't get out and do the evaluations to make sure that they give them the correct AAC. So what they did was they came to us and said, what can you do that will allow us to just give them AAC and until we can do an evaluation? Could you give us like a yearly type thing that's just like pure seats? So what we did is we came up with, it's called an annual site license, which is just seats. And everybody can use it, and it's everybody, but it was made it for a fast deployment where we used the management tool, and they were able to use that management tool to be able to deploy it to multiple classrooms. They were able to deploy it to school districts, and to schools, but some of them were able to use it as classroom devices, but others were able to use it just to make sure that people had AAC for core words until they were able to get the correct evaluation. But it works so well, and we're getting other calls from school districts that, well, all of our other software is already annual licenses per seat, right? And it helps us just make sure that back to the UDL and make sure that everybody has what they need. We're able to provide an annual site license. For instance, I can provide 100 seats for the cost of purchasing 6 licenses. I can provide that along with a management account or the management tool. And the biggest worry that people had was, well, we can't do seats because that student needs their account, right? I don't want them to just see this number. They still keep their account. That's the biggest thing, is we want to make sure that a student keeps their username, password, everything that's set up. So with an annual site license, you're able to provide AAC to a lot more students at a much lower cost, but you're still able to personalize an account for a specific student, if that makes sense. This is where our biggest concern from several of the school districts as they started to move to it was, our IT department is asking us to move to annual. We don't want to do that because we know that our student needs a license. But yet, when the student graduated, they still took the license away. So I didn't understand that. So what we did, if they're taking the license away anyway, wouldn't it be better to give them a seat with an account, a username and password that belongs to that student? And they just fill that seat until they graduate, but then that username and password, that account, stays with the student. And then if the student graduates, then they can either purchase it on their own, or somebody like their insurance can purchase it. They keep their account. That's the most important with these cough drop licenses, is if the actual district keeps their licenses, the student keeps their account and everything that's been on it when they leave. If another student moves into your district, you can just assign them a seat with their current username and password, or with their current account, with their username, and they can now become part of your district. And so what we're doing is now we're working with several districts who are able to provide AAC to 100 students for what it would cost to typically get 5 or 6 licenses a year, right? And so you're able to provide AAC in the classroom, or you're able to provide, I know we've got a few different, you introduce AAC to the classroom, or AAC word of the week, and you're able to provide it to full classrooms if you need to, this way, right? And you can provide it, and if they don't need it, then you can short or take that seat back and assign it to somebody else. The other things that you continue to have with this site license is you still have the remote management features. And we even have additional options. Therefore, well, it does cost more, but we do have some school districts that are asking for single sign-on, LMS integration. What we're saying is, if things are slowing your school district down because they're being held up, because you can't keep track of licenses, or because you have staff that continues to move and you don't know what's happening with the school district, we can provide the actual way for you to continue to keep track of your licenses. We can provide the way for you to assign AAC out or provide AAC for a much larger population. I've been in enough classrooms where 1 or 2 students have the AAC, and as soon as we put it up on the whiteboard and they start to use it, the interactive whiteboard, and they say, oh, you know what, I bet this kiddo could use it and this kiddo could use it, and oh, that actually really helps them with their articulation. This student is English as a second language. This is helping them. Or we've turned this one into a Spanish and an English board. I know that there are other uses for annual site licenses, and being able to provide it for 100 students for the cost of what you're purchasing 5, 6 licenses for now. So this is what the cloud does for you, is being able to do all of this and not looking over some of these students have been looked over in the past just because you haven't had the time to take care of it. So as I mentioned, we haven't actually officially released specific pricing and things like that. But if your school district has a need for annual site license or a classroom license or something that we have not actually, I haven't shown you yet today, we can do it. Right? Think outside the box. Any questions on that? Yeah, I even put this together. Right, but with this school district, we did $1,500 for annual license, and it was 100 seats. All right, where else are you going to get 100 AAC accounts for $1,500? Right, that would have cost them like $12,500 up front. That was at a discounted rate, and plus the org management account. This is amazing. Take advantage of it. Start looking at the fact that you can provide so many more AAC accounts and keep track of it, and make sure with all of these management features, you're not losing some of these students in transition. One of the biggest issues that we had with our first AAC account was that we first received it. We were so excited, and then nothing happened. And we kind of lost a couple of years because we didn't know it was happening. So one of my biggest passions is to make sure that school districts have a way to make sure that things are happening through the entire way, the entire time the students are there. But yeah, so we will continue to come up with ways that we can collaborate with school districts. These are the three that we'll continue to release. So watch for these. But we already have some basic org license management features. But classroom licenses, watch for that. Annual site licenses, we've been doing those, but we'll make some better announcements on and pricing and things like that. But then ask us about custom solutions. All of these started from problems that people had that they just needed to keep track of. You have less time. This is not unique among any school district. Every school district I talk to is I have less time. I'm being asked to do more. I'm being asked to track more. Well, we're able to provide the licenses. We're able to provide the data and tracking you need. Please make sure that the students that need the AAC can have what you need. Appreciate the time. And I'm going to stop this. And you have a good rest of the time.